Okay, what we have here is we have Deborah's syllabus, and or at least the syllabus that she sent me, and so what I did is everything that's in type here, that's in color, that's what I changed. So this is the syllabus that Deborah had updated based upon the People's University and the ODE modules, and then I just went ahead and looked at it and I just added some things to it. So you'll see here in the beginning, I thought that this course wasn't supposed to actually show students how to teach diverse populations. I thought it was just supposed to tell them about diverse populations, but I'm fine with either way. But anyways, because I thought that that wasn't what it was supposed to do, I just crossed these out here and I put them in purple, and that's going to match the color later on when I look at when I talk about Deborah's, what she added from the topics from the People's University, which does talk about how to modify curriculum, how to modify lesson plans. Okay, so if you go through this, really the part that I've had my most impact here, at least my most changes, or not actually called changes, just information, is in the tentative course schedule. And you have to see here, understanding culture. I just wanted to highlight this as the students are working on their ethnic history paper and self-reflecting. There's this great appendix in the back that has a great set of questions that the students can use to help them to think about their own biases. There's also a video where they start talking about generate discussion for meeting individual needs, and that's what Deborah has in week 2, this culturally responsive approaches to curriculum, and uh, and also communal needs and cultural needs and how to identify them. Let's see here in week 4, there's an appendix that has a great art. This article is really excellent on African American students, the successful teachers of African American students, but it is narrow to that. They do try and broaden it a little bit, but the study was really about successful teachers of African Americans. So two things. One is that it's very narrow, and so maybe this when we start talking about this research, maybe we should start talking about these other populations as well, gender, sexual orientation, and all. Jeannie has this listed later in her original syllabus in like a week for each of these, so you can see that I'm saying if we add this here, actually going to add a few weeks to this section. Let's see, the second thing that I have on this while I'm mentioning this is because the article is probably too scholarly for 211D itself, so we might have to like summarize it for the students. This part here, beginning week 6 in green, in week 6, the modules talk about math standards, and then week 7 is science and how to change the curriculum and your lessons for science, and then in week 8 it's English language arts. So what I thought here we could do, and that's what I have here in big type and all caps, is that maybe for week 6, 7, and 8, we could have those that are going to be math teachers. They're going to work all 3 weeks on math. Those are going to be science teachers, all 3 weeks on science. Those are early childhood, would work all 3 weeks on their grade band, and so on. So I think that rather than have the entire class talking about math for 1 week and science for another week, which we could lose a lot of students, maybe we ought to just kind of make it more individualized based upon what the students what their grade band is or what their content area is. This is the purple part. This is the part that was crossed out earlier, and so basically, again, I don't really have a preference whether we show how to teach diverse groups in this course or if we do it in another course. In like, for example, for the AYA program, the middle childhood program, it'd be EDU 212. My big concern is that we use the same lexicon, the same terms, and since EDU 212 for the AYAs and the middles is happening the same time, they're taking that course the same time as 211D, they're co-requisites, or they will be co-requisites beginning in a year, that I just want to make sure that these two courses are in tune with each other, that they're agreeing with each other, not only the same terms, but if 212 is handling all the lesson planning, then I want to make sure that they're using the ideas that are happening in 211D as they're emerging in 211D. And if not, then I just want to make sure that they are linked, they are aligned, and they know what each other's doing, so they can give the candidates a much better experience. Let's see. I'm not sure if there's anything else in there. Okay, so I think that that's it for. The other thing I'm attaching is the notes I was making. So prior to to Deborah modifying that lesson plan or that syllabus and sending it to me, I had looked at the ODE modules, and I was just putting together just a real basic rundown of what I found in there for our committee. And so that's what this is right here. To get into those modules, you have to have a teaching license in Ohio, but there is another way around. So I talked to the ODE and they have another way around, and that's what this link is here, because they said our students wouldn't be able to get into it. So, and basically here's just some information about it. Like, for example, 9.5 hours collectively is what all the modules, the time, the videos take. Here are the declared objectives of the course, so of the module. So I took all the module objectives and I just listed them here. And then I was matching them with the 211D, with what Jeannie had on the syllabus for 211D, those objectives, and those objectives are in blue. So you see that they do match pretty well. So here's the module objective, and here's the 211D objective and all. I think a few things that where they weren't, at least I couldn't find similarities, were let's see, the importance of social awareness, this one right here, I didn't see it, at least in our objectives in 211D, recognize that culturally responsive educators understand the importance of social political awareness. I know we talk about social political awareness, but I'm not really sure in the context of student learning. So there again, that's the part, I think, that purple part that Deborah's adding in, and it might have already been in in the current course. Let's see. Develop an understanding that culturally responsive educators have students become change agents in their communities. So in other words, again, that that was one of the things I mentioned a little bit earlier, that our candidates would help their students become agents of change. They talk about that. And they also talk about the importance of self-care. In other words, that this can be a very stressful role to play for any teacher, and that you have to take time off, and they have a video in there and they talk about that. So that's a really nice thing. It could be that 211D is talking about, and I just don't see it in the objectives. There's a glossary of terms that they have in these modules, which would be nice to use that glossary, or whatever we use, again, for at least the AYA program. I want to make sure I'm using it in the AYA program all the way across it. This was the only outcome here that's in the 211D that I could not find in the ODE modules. Students will research, investigate, and see resources to understand the histories and contributions of the diverse groups represented in today's society. So this is more of like looking at it globally, and I thought that the modules were a little bit more micro level. You know, what's in the community, what's in your student body, what's in the classroom. Okay, so that's what I thought they were doing here. I guess I didn't say it earlier. I guess it's right there, helping students, not candidates, become agents of change. I thought that here were some of the differences that I found, which I kind of already mentioned in the ODE modules versus what I could see in the 211D. Now this last part here are just other items that I was hoping to discuss with the committee before we leave this fall, or leave for the summer. And there's, again, integrating the ideas of 211D with the assessment, for example. And it's really just across the whole spectrum. I want to make sure that 211D is getting used, at least for the AYA program. I'm really trying to make a big effort in that right now. The videos are relatively short, from 2 to like 5 or 6 minutes. I'm not sure why I have that in there, but there's something I do want us to take a look at too. This case studies on diversity and social justice education. I'm beginning to use that in EDU 206. It's a set of vignettes, and the students so far, and I've only used a few of them in 206, but they really do love them. They really do. They love talking about, you know, and giving their opinions about this, and so they're very, very revealing. So I'm going to use that in the design of 312, the new classroom learning environment, but I think it would be an excellent resource for 211D too. So just to kind of give you a look at what that's the text right there. And kind of getting back to this here. I'm going to skip these two graphics right there, and then this is basically the directory of cases by topic. So if you're interested in what the topics are that they cover, what the vignettes are, those are the topics they cover. And then I have 3 vignettes here that I've included in case you want to get an idea for how they're set up. So basically you have the vignette, and then you have the questions there. The last thing I just wanted to say from these modules, I thought this was an excellent graphic here. So if we don't end up using it, I'm not sure it's in the current modules. I think it's not in the current module. I thought it was in the draft module. So I think this is an excellent about Ohio's students, how diverse our student population is. And so I thought this was one that we would want to keep into 211D. If not, I'll use it in 206. And then this is the cultural frames of reference. They go from surface level, shallow to deep. And those questions that the students use to self-reflect, they have the questions based at the surface level, shallow and deep. And so it kind of goes along with this. And so when the students self-reflect, the questions are again coming from, they're either very intense or deep or whatever you want to say, or they're very shallow, but they're all in there. And so the students could definitely develop their ethnic biographies based upon those questions there. So that's pretty much all that I have to show.